Okay, we're live. Whoop de whoop. Welcome, everyone, to Ask an Archaeologist Day, July 19th, 2024. And welcome to Inside Archaeology if you're new here. Have you been? Joaquin's already starting us with the questions in the chat right away. Give me 2 seconds, Joaquin, and I will answer your question. Just for anybody who is joining us, who hasn't been here before, my name is Rachel. I'm an archaeologist. I don't work in the field anymore, but I'm still quite active through my YouTube channel here. And today is something, Ask an Archaeologist Day is widely a part of something called the Festival of Archaeology in the UK, that's run by the Council for British Archaeology, but I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. I'm not associated with them in any way, to try and answer some of your questions today. So just so I'm not sitting here talking into the void, we're also going to play a game that's called Heaven's Vault. It's been on my radar for a little while, and it's described as like a sci-fi archaeology game. So it's like set in the future, but involves I think the main character is an archaeologist trying to solve a mystery. So I think that should be pretty fun to play, see how good I am or am not at it. If I usually play Tomb Raider before the premieres of all my videos. Today is a special exception live stream. So we're taking a break from Tomb Raider for tonight, and we'll see how far we can make it through this game before I call it quits. I don't really have a plan for how long tonight's going to be, but we'll just go until we run out of questions. If you have any questions about archaeology, working as an archaeologist, or just history in general, put them in the chat, and I will do my best to answer them while I'm playing. So Joaquin has already asked, what have you been to or worked at Pompeii? So I have been to Pompeii. I went there 2 years ago on my honeymoon. I dragged my husband down to, I say dragged, it implies that he did not enjoy himself, which he did. We went down to Naples and did both Herculaneum and Pompeii. So if you didn't know, hopefully you do. They're very famous archaeological parks. Herculaneum is like Pompeii's little sister. It was like more of a resort town with kind of higher end buildings that was buried. And I actually had a lot of people when we were traveling there tell us that we should go, if we had to pick between the two, we should do Herculaneum instead of Pompeii, just because it usually tends to be less crowded. Both are very easily accessible from the train from the center of Naples, which is great. And yeah, we went to Pompeii at the beginning of June, and it was so hot. And I had done like all this research the night before of all the different things to see. And I think we got through most of it until my husband walking along there, like very steep curb cobbled streets kind of like slightly twisted his ankle, so then we didn't last much longer that day, but we got through most of the stuff that I wanted. Dark Anthro asks, hi, do you have any advice for someone applying to MA programs to visit and start a career in archaeology? MA programs. I think my biggest piece of advice when I did an MA, an MSc at the University of Edinburgh about 10 years ago now, which I don't want to think about how long ago that was. I I would advise reaching out to the either like the program directors or the departments to like ask them and initiate a conversation and have a few questions about their program prepared. So I did this for all the programs that I applied to. I sent them emails being like, what are some of the unique things about your course, or what kind of fieldwork do you offer? What are the different modules that are in the MA, and like what are you really looking for in successful candidates for your programs? And they all got back to me. So that's also like just a way to kind of maybe make yourself stand out a little bit more from other applicants. And it shows that you're actually interested in the program and you're not just applying to it as like a sweep of applying to lots of different programs. And also it can maybe help you decide which programs you actually want to spend time in. For example, I found that, some of the programs that I was applying to, one of them, um, because I was doing a master's in human osteoarchaeology, which is a study of skeletal remains. One of them actually had you working with cadavers in a lab, like not in doing the dissections, but definitely handling fleshy dead bodies, which is not for me. That I wasn't keen on doing forensics, so I ended up going with Edinburgh instead, which just had you handling skeletal material. But stuff like that can just let you know the program a little bit more. Oh, there's so many questions. I don't know if we're going to get time to play the game eventually. What unexpected qualities, values, or skills prepared you for your career? And then there's also advice for someone who's starting to study archaeology. So I'm going to pass on the piece of advice that I got from a family friend, a family friend's relative who is an archaeologist working in the US when I first was about to start studying archaeology, which was be the first one on site in the morning and the last one off site at night. And this is like a piece of advice that has always served me really well. And it's just kind of a general philosophy to take to things, especially when it comes to field work, not necessarily studying archaeology. But it's just people appreciate and they notice when you are making that kind of an effort. And also, it can be a very demanding job or field work, and especially is an adjustment. If you're not used to doing manual labor, you're usually getting up quite early in the morning, spending your whole day, maybe not the equivalent of a gym workout, but moving around, doing lots of stuff. And yeah, just trying to be the first person that gets onto site. You're there, you're awake, you're present, you're helping unload the tools, you're just ready to start your day. And at the end of the day, you're not the first person packed up, ready to go home. You're helping everybody out. That sticks in people's minds as a good quality to have. So that's kind of what I would say for that. Other qualities, values, or skills prepared me. What could I say? I think when I was at university, and maybe this is something that also just like generally applies to millennials in general. I'm pretty good with technology, so I worked for like the IT desk at my university, which was not a complicated job. I do not have a background in computer science, etc. They trained me to do anything I needed to do, but it meant that I just became really familiar with computers and some kind of general troubleshooting, um, which has always been helpful when I and just like having an above average knowledge of how to use like average programs like Microsoft Office programs is definitely beneficial. A lot of archaeology program companies that I work for, they'll do their databases and stuff like that. They do them on Excel. So knowing your way around an Excel spreadsheet is quite helpful. I also, at one point, the company I worked for, not this is not a usual thing, but they were a smaller one. Um, they formatted and wrote all of their reports in Microsoft Word. And I actually ended up spending a bunch of time just learning how to properly format things in Microsoft Word so that like, when you put an image somewhere, then you add a bit of text, it doesn't move around somewhere else, or knowing how to like go in the same document, have one page be portrait and then the next page down is landscape because you need to put a bunch of drawings and maps on it, and then you go back to it being portrait, and knowing how to do that instead of having like two separate documents, always really useful. Or just maybe some like basic photo editing, that kind of stuff, always helpful. Um, what is okay? So this is going to be my last question before we start the game because we've got 8 people on now, so we'll start playing. What surprise find Sorry for the bad English. I'm not quite sure what you're asking. What surprise find? I mean, all finds. If the question you're asking, I think, is what surprise find did you ever make on a dig? Um, all finds are a surprise because you don't know what you're going to come across before you dig into the ground. That's kind of the whole point. I have been on a site where we found a Bronze Age weapon treasure hoard that had like a spearhead with a little bit of gold on it. That's the only time I found gold in my entire career. Well, I didn't personally find it. I was just there when it was found. The only time I've had gold be on site in my entire career, perhaps, is a better way of saying that. So we had the Bronze Age weapons hoard, and then when I was in Jordan doing my student digs, we found some burials, which were later than the town that we were excavating. The town we were excavating is Iron Age. These burials were like medieval, Bedouin, Ottoman period stuff, so like over 1,000 years apart, I think. Yes, and that they were a surprise to me. They weren't necessarily a surprise to the dig team because I'd had stuff like that there before. That they'd found. So they knew that they came across this stuff sometimes on this site, but I certainly wasn't expecting to come across skeletal remains on my first year digging. So that was a surprise for me. And then I liked like excavating them so much and the information that you can learn from a person's body and their remains. I liked it so much that I ended up studying it as a master's, which I then barely used in my working life, but it's fine. I theoretically still can name every bone in the body, although please don't test me on that. The hand and the feet ones are the ones that you always end up forgetting. Anyway, we've got a bunch of people online. I said we were going to play this game, so I'm going to start the game, and if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll see. Yeah, we'll just get started. So. Oh, so I'm liking this. We're starting off right away with a quote from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is, in case you didn't know, it's like an epic story poem from Mesopotamia. I actually have read, not the entire thing, but parts of it for my undergraduate degree. That was like one of my classes was epic myth and poetry, and as a part of that, we read parts of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I don't know. Just a second, I have to like dull down the sound on this for me because I can barely hear myself think right now. It's a very explicit poem. People think that, I don't know, there's this like sanitized version of history that people like, that I think kind of comes from the Victorians, that tells us that people were always like really prim and proper. Yeah, you read some ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian poetry and love spells and stuff, and nah, they were dirty. Petunia asks, with extreme heat in Europe in the summers, will archaeology digs need to adjust their schedules to avoid the hottest months? Unfortunately, that's not. I don't think so, Petunia. I mean, I used to work on field schools in the Kingdom of Jordan in the middle of July and August, hottest parts of the month when it gets to like 40-degree heat. And I've also worked in Canada when it was the middle of summer.
Stories don't have tidy beginnings.
40-degree heat. I'll just
the
let this.
Past is always present.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be a spark. Something that brings the past to light.
You worry too much. It's not much further. 2. If you stumble, I will push you up. Okay. This is a nice statue that we're coming up to. I like this desert environment, feeling at home. Oh, I must have like a, okay. All right, 2 seconds. I've got one thing to do and I'll answer a question and then, oh, resume game. So yeah, yeah, I think if it was getting too hot in the summers, you just have to put in hot weather protocols, which is either you start early and finish late. I don't know what the controls are for this game, actually. Settings. Speech volume, music volume, camera, text. Okay. Am I supposed to... Okay. Let's have a look here around here. This is the summit. Yeah, so they, like, you would just maybe adjust it so that you have people working earlier in the day so that they avoid the heat, or you take more breaks, make sure that you're providing lots of like water, etc. Okay. Bricked up opening. There's something here. Yeah. No kidding. Keep people out. Keep something in. An ancient script. Interesting. I really like the music in this. Oh, all right. Joaquin's asking, who is the first archaeologist? Depends on how far back you go. There is a son of one of the pharaohs of Egypt in the New Kingdom who like did some excavations and everything way back when. So do you count? He's often called the first archaeologist. So depends on what you consider that early archaeology. Oh, okay.
Begins on Iox. That was where I met the robot.
Star City University, nice. I also like her wardrobe, by the way. Very practical. Number 2. Glacial melt archaeology. Yeah, it is actually. I'm going to be doing a. I have a video coming out on Sunday that is all about climate change and archaeology and the like connections and impacts between the two. So if you're not already subscribed and notified, you should make sure that you are so that you can watch it on Sunday when it comes out. 3. Did she say what she wanted? Yes. Oh, but you're not going to tell me, are you? Okay. How kind of you. Oh, okay.
I was 15 when my Ari rescued me from the slums of Elbereth and brought me here. I'd never seen such luxury or such kindness.
What's this? Myri takes me to Iox. Oh, this is interesting. They've got like a timeline of this person's life. Roy finding the nightingale. Okay. And are you aware of any Canadian sites being examined at glacial edges? No, not of any in particular, but I imagine there's lots going on. What's this? The Holy Empire, the Dark. Oh, I like this. This is like a timeline. Crown of Iox, tree planted. Last emperor disappears. The Loop Temple reestablished. Followers. Can I click on this? The modern age. Raised me, family work from the moment that I could walk. Okay.
I still don't know why she did it.
Let's go for 2. Ancient markings. This game starts a bit slower than I'm used to. By this point in Tomb Raider, I've probably run around and died at least once. No. Holy Emperor. Let's go for friend. This is not how you do language stuff. Do college students get CRM work during the school year in USA? Sometimes. I worked in Canada, not the US, but oh, okay. But I am only guessing. I worked in Canada. We had a professor at my university program who owned an archaeological company who would occasionally hire people during the summer. And due to the contract nature of archaeology, you probably actually wouldn't have a hard time finding work in CRM over the summer, depending on where you are. Yeah, so I'm sure people do go and get field experience. They might have a harder time finding a job if they don't already have field experience. So usually I would say most people would end up doing their field schools first to get the training and the foundation, ideally in the place where you want to work. But I mean, I was a Near Eastern and classical archaeologist, and I found work in Canada. So But I don't work in the US and it has been 10 years, so I don't know if it's any different now. So I gotta go find a missing person. Okay. I'll see what I can dig up. Oh my gosh, I have to go for the pun. In case you haven't seen any of my other videos, I use the dig pun a lot. Oh, I'm taking my robot. Oh, okay then. Mm-hmm. Very interesting looking robot. Always polite. I'm never the mean person in these games. I can't do it. Must have walked. Okay, straight past him. Okay. It would be difficult in the US for an undergrad to find CRM work. They need to satisfy. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, that proves me wrong then. We definitely had people. I mean, how it works in Canada is a bit different because you don't necessarily. Do you need a license? You didn't when I did it. You didn't need a license to work on an archaeological site, but you needed a license to like run or supervise an archaeological site. That might be different now, as you know they do things. I think it probably also depends on potentially where, which state you're in, maybe. 6. Okay. Oh, so I didn't do it right. To reflect that. Oh, that's okay. So we're gonna go for Holy Emperor then. This is a really interesting. I've not played a game like this, I think, in a very, very long time. I really wanted to get into the PH at Memorial University of Newfoundland. Oh, really? I think I know people who did Memorial. I'm in Ontario, so I did Wilfrid Laurier University, and then a lot of people went to University of Toronto. What do you mean? Wholesome. Ah. Oh. Cat just jumped on the desk to go into her perch. History is a science. Excuse me. Rude. I don't like that guy. He is rude. How rude. Recreation or reconstruction in archaeology. I think it's cool. I like reconstructed stuff, but it's always like, I mean, you have to understand that a lot of the time it's like artistic license. So, somebody asked a question, I think on Reddit when I posted about the live stream about like redoing like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Like somewhere like Pompeii, where you have a pretty good idea of like how things looked. And you don't have to do much to just like preserve a site that's already well preserved. I think that's great. But like something like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, that's difficult because we actually don't have an example to even base things off of. They've not found a site that we could say that was those gardens. I'm not really paying attention to this conversation. It's only a story. Blah, blah, blah. Stories change how we think. Tell me the story then.
He continued to talk. I watched his mouth moving. I love old stories, but Wang has a way of telling them.
Holy. Oh, so we do have the correct word here. Yay. Well, I mean, silk is pretty light and it's expensive. Just saying. Registered professional archaeologist. Yeah, Walter. That was always construction, never reconstruction. Yeah. Oh, I've missed what this guy asked me. I don't know. Oh, okay. That just fades. Yeah, this guy is kind of boring. Proceed to your shift now. Let's do it. I don't want to talk to this robot anymore. Old walls of the university. Okay, continue. Diachronic anthropology. Can you explain? Do you have a YouTube channel, Diachronic, or what's your specialty? Or what did you do your MA? What did you do your MA in? Farmyards can still have interesting stuff in them besides plow furrows. Maybe we can make a profit on this. Ugh. 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 This is a nice looking... This is a very wooden looking spaceship. Or at least I'm assuming it's a spaceship. Maybe it's not. Okay. course. Okay. This game is like not very intuitive in the verdant pass. I do have a YouTube channel, but no videos. My MA thesis was near my farm to the spatial analysis of African American settlement patterns in Hillsborough. Sounds very interesting. Okay, do I have to move this?
My Ari wanted us to sail to Mersey. It was a short sail through fast waters.
All right. Turn us right. Don't really. Oh, okay. All right. Currents below. Oh, I'm not very good at this. At least you can't. I doubt you can die in this game. This is a very interesting looking ship. Can't even run into rocks. Oh, okay. I don't want this guy to be talking to me, like, while I'm doing stuff. Oh, okay. Cool. Have you seen any Tasting History with Max Miller? Yeah, so I know of Max Miller and I know of Tasting History, and ironically, like 7 years ago, I was telling a bunch of people on an archaeological site about how on my YouTube channel I wanted to do something where I cooked old recipes, and he's now taken, well, obviously he did not know that. People can have the same idea in different places, and he's taken kind of that idea and that concept and turned it into like a huge thing, which is really cool. And I'm sure he's much better at it than I would have been because I'm a really fussy eater. So trying to make like Roman fish sauce or like just some of the more like crazy recipes that are out there, he probably has a much more diverse palate than I do. But he's not like I I mean I wouldn't call him necessarily an archaeologist, but he's definitely does some really great research, and some really great work like passing on some of these foods. And Fremba's here. I need to work out where he went. Okay.
We stepped off the ship and into the mud. Mud covered the ground and rock.
That's a really weird looking ship.
Things were growing from the mud. And some of those things had legs.
Yeah, what's a piggy? Okay, I guess I get to explore around a bit here. I did an intro at Weedon Island type site. Very cool. I wonder if I can go in here. Whoop. Oh, will he not? Useful you to tell me where to go. Oh my gosh, there's a shovel. I want the shovel. Why can't I pick it up? That's not fair. You can't just leave that out there and then not let me pick it up and dig things. Boo. Okay. Time to backtrack. I don't like this robot. He's shifty. Oh, there's people here.
The air smelled earthy and sweet.
I recognize this voice. Am I the only one? I'm gonna have to look up who did the voice work on this. Can't even walk on the rice. Nice statue. Let's see if I can. Beautifully crafted. Something carved. Oh, it's a clue. Don't think I'm going to be able to translate this. Holy something something. Holy water goddess. I feel like that makes more sense considering where we are. Continue. Do Doggerland have any signs of human habitation? I don't know. I presume so. It would have probably at least had some signs at some point, but it's underwater now, so. Yeah, makes sense. Aha, so I've solved one mystery. All right, now let's go investigate this warehouse with this shifty person inside. There's mud everywhere. Definitely words that many archaeologists have uttered. Who is Iox? They talk about it like it's kind of like a person, but I thought it was a place. I'm gonna have to find some ramp to get up there. Towards the village. This way. But I want to go to the warehouse.
This was what passed for a street on Mersey. Buildings on stilts, jumping out of the bushes like children. It was so quiet.
I bet you there's so many people that would be like, I would love to live here because I hate people and I want quiet and city stuff. It's such a refrain that I hear so much, which I don't agree with.
3 paths met at the heart of the village. I could imagine them all, sitting around here in the evenings, sipping rucker and singing. It seemed nice.
She's talking about these people like they're dead. Yeah, okay. What was your favorite part of fieldwork? Ooh. Favorite part. I think my favorite field activity is, let's just pause this. When you find something significant, let's say like in situ, and so you have to like spend a bunch of time doing kind of fine work uncovering it, taking photos, drawing, etc. So if you ever find a skeleton, you spend a bunch of time uncovering as much of the bones as you can, but still leaving them in place, and then you'll take all your pictures. I always really liked doing the bit where you're just kind of cleaning them off and doing kind of work with really tiny tiny tools and all that kind of stuff. I always really enjoyed that a lot. I could just do that for days. That was my favorite part of actual field work. The actual activities that we did. But also I just, it's always nice to get onto a new site and make friends with people on a new team and meet new people. That happens quite a lot when you're hopping from contract to contract, job to job. One of my favorite things that I did that you don't get to do on every single dig was on one that I was on. Not every archaeologist, it was me and one other person. We both got trained to drive JCB diggers, little tiny ones. I think they were 10 ton. But they, for some reason, said that it was easier to train us to do it, to dig some test pits, than to hire legit digger drivers in to do it. So I got a half-day crash course on how to drive these things, and then spent probably a few weeks just scooping stuff. And then occasionally afterwards I would get asked to take the keys and go move some spoil heaps because they needed to excavate somewhere. So that was probably one of the coolest things that I got to do, is I got to drive a machine, which is not something that we usually get an opportunity to do. I like pedestaling and bisecting features with block microstrata to figure it out. Yeah, that's it. It's always I always used to think that I would hate stratigraphy, or not but figuring out Harris matrices. I used to have to do them, on when I was in Jordan at the end of your season. If you're a supervisor, you have to make the diagram for all the strata in your square. And yeah, again, that's one of those things that initially I was like, oh, I don't really think I like this. But once you get into it, you just so many hours that you end up doing that. How many countries have I worked in as an archaeologist? I've dug in 3. I've done research project. I've done project. Okay, so I dug in Jordan as a student. I wasn't paid to do it, but I did participate on an archaeological project. I did work there. Um, so that's Jordan. I worked as an archaeologist, like paid on sites in Southern Ontario in Canada for about 10 months at one point. My master's research, I didn't actually do any digging, but I went to Bulgaria and I spent a few weeks doing analysis of skeletal material that had already been like dug up. So I don't think that really counts, but yeah. And then I worked as an archaeologist in the United Kingdom for a few years doing field work before I transitioned into office-based work. And now I don't work in archaeology anymore because, as Diachronic might be able to concur, the pay is not great. There's not a lot of room for progression if you want to do it not on a slow time scale, and it's not very family friendly after a while. And yeah, if you're not part of this channel, you will not know that I am currently 8 months pregnant. So I cannot imagine trying to do field work right now. Like, I know there are women who definitely worked in doing field work up until very, very late in their pregnancy, but like right now, the other day, like I was struggling with my breathing, like walking just like uphill. I can't imagine doing field work. That would be crazy. um, what has been your most significant find? Probably the Bronze Age weapons hoard. Well, okay, Bronze Age weapons hoard. I was there for it. Like I said, I didn't personally find it. What's my favorite thing that I that's a really hard question to answer because there's so many different things. Favorite thing, I think, well, no, I can't really, it's not really my favorite. The things that spring to mind to me are the statuette that I found in Jordan. It was like a limestone statuette that it had been smashed into a few different pieces. So we had like the torso and part of the legs in our area, and then we later found like the foot and a fist, which still had like remains of paint on them. They were from the Iron Age part of the site, so they're around 4,000 years old. Those were pretty cool. But also probably the thing that, yeah, I found some other like interesting little like bottles, I guess. It was like a little vessel that had like, it was made out of calcite, and it had these little crosshatch like decorations, geometric decorations in it. That was pretty cool. And then when there was like a faience, which is like not glass, it's called ceramic, but it's kind of like almost an early form of glass. It's most well known in Egypt, but it happens outside of it. But I found like a faience, like little cup, goblet, chalice. It was like this big. It like was not large. That was pretty cool. Yeah, I think that those are going to be my things. Fantastic. You mentioned that finds are photographed and drawn. Who draws the finds, or do you have to be able to draw well as an archaeologist? You do not have to. Sorry, guys, this game is just. I'm just taking a moment to answer questions. I don't know if this game was exactly the right choice for this stream, but so it's kind of it's twofold things. So when you're in the field, you will probably end up doing a field drawing of it in situ to like show where it is in its context. And a lot of the time, field drawing is what I kind of call in my mind is measured drawing. So you'll have like a tape measure on your x-axis and a tape measure on your, so you'll have like an x-axis and a y-axis, and then your thing will be in the middle of it, and you will measure on those two axes and plot it in on like a sheet of graph paper at a certain scale, and then you just like connect the dots. So you're just, yeah, it's like connect the dots. You just have to put the dots in. In terms of and then so you did probably do like a quick drawing of it in situ. Sometimes you wouldn't even do the measured part, you just kind of do like a sketch of roughly what it looks like. And there are some people who are better than that at that than others, but it's not necessarily a requirement that you're a good artist to do it. Like they're not expecting you to be like a Renaissance painter. They just need you to like give them like a good idea, or like have some features on it so they can see like how it was lying, etc. But then what would happen again is later you would have it in a lab. So say if it's like a piece of pottery with some really great painting or like decorative elements on it, someone in the lab would then also redraw that to get like the profile and the sections. And that is something that you get some training to do. But again, it's not, you'll have different tools to help you do it so that it's exact, because we're not looking for like an artistic representation. But I think a lot of the times now they'll be taking photographs, and you might, sometimes you might like trace over it a photograph in like a program. But yeah, definitely don't need to be an artist. I did art in high school, so I think I found some of the drawing elements a bit easier than other people, but definitely not something that like you 100%. If you're the kind of person that can only draw stick people, that shouldn't keep you from wanting to pursue archaeology. Fantastic. Harris matrices for their reports. Harris matrices for archaeologists. My career in government work, so pay is usually not great, but time off and benefits are good. Worked for FEMA for a while. No digging allowed, but the money was phenomenal. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I got paid so much better in Canada than I did, just in subs. Subsistence pay, the pay that you get to pay for your food while you're away from home. My pay for that was much better in Canada than it was in the UK. The pay in the UK is just like ridiculous. Well, I mean, pay in archaeology in general is just crazy, but yeah, I had somebody emailing me earlier this week being like, why is it so undervalued? I'm like, I don't know, because we accept those rates of pay, like, and because people in different companies rush to the bottom when they're doing bids, and we're not unionized, so collectively we have no bargaining power. I mean, it's not to say that, like, it's also one of those things where like pay in archaeology is similar to like every other job out there, that it's not risen properly with inflation over the past 10-20 years. We're not the only people that are struggling. But I think it's just kind of crazy that, especially in the UK and places like the US, where it's enshrined in the law that, you have to do certain amounts of archaeological work to preserve the past, that it's not better paid. It is actually like ludicrous to me. What's a good soft? So I like, when I say software program, I'm not like, um, there's not like a specific software program for archaeological drawing. It's like we would use something like, I think it's Adobe Illustrator, or GIMP is one that I've used, which is like a freeware. But um, and that's just for like lab drawing. That's not for field drawing. Field drawing is all done by hand. And a lot of lab drawing is done by hand, and then you scan it into a machine, and then you make it pretty in the program for when you're publishing the different profiles and everything. What's the most fragile object you have found? Human skulls. Yeah, human remains. They, if they're not in the right kind of soil, like soil composition affects how well bones preserve. It's not something where every body preserves the same. The acidity, the wetness, ground shifting, it's people building over that site again, all those things will or contamination from like modern chemicals, those will all affect preservation of bones. And Sometimes they preserve really, really well, like when you're in a nice dry environment like Jordan, where they're like really robust. And there's not a lot of elements to contribute to their decay. But yeah, in the UK, I worked on a site in Lincoln where sometimes they would just end up being really fragile. And I remember one time I was like picking up a skull, and there was a bunch of like big wigs from the project watching me as I was working. And as I picked it up, it just like fell apart in my hands. And yeah, I think it really upset some people. Like, it wasn't my fault. Like, it was in a fragile state, and it didn't matter how delicately I would have lifted it. It would have fallen apart. But yeah, that definitely can be really upsetting for people if they don't realize that that can happen. It's difficult for the CRMs firms because they generally provide lodging and per diem. Their margins are slim already. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for paying field techs. You're correct, Diachronic, but at the same time, why are they not charging more for that work? And the answer is probably because of a competitive market. Everyone's at least how it works in the UK is everyone's in a race to the bottom because they all want to get work because they want their company to continue functioning, blah, 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 blah. Or that at least is the reasons that I have heard verbatim the entire time that I've worked in the UK. Because these are construction projects, and there's no real like guide on day rates and like how much you should be charging for this, or how much like the standard rate of a job should be. So what inevitably ends up happening is a company will put a project out to tender, and then because we live in a capitalist society with companies that want to save money, they go with the lowest common denominator for whoever puts the bid in. So the person at the bottom gets the work and sets the trend for how much everyone gets paid, which is stupid. There are obviously cases where some companies will not choose the lowest bid, but I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the trend. Human remains were behind my worst experience ever, was shut down for a week so the sheriffs could investigate the scene. Meanwhile, the client had rented equipment going nowhere. Yeah, but you got to make sure it's not a murder victim. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, it's different. I think in the U.S. than it is in the U.K. Because you also have the whole thing to do with First Nations and Native Americans and Native American burial grounds and sensitivities around that. It's the UK. It's a bit different. You apply for a license from the Ministry of Justice to excavate it. Like, the police have to come and verify that it's not a murder victim, but like if you're excavating an archaeological site, sometimes they even get the Ministry of Justice license in advance, if they think they might have a potential for finding bodies. And then, you can usually tell if it's a recent murder victim or if it's somebody that's been buried like 1,000 years ago because of like burial style, grave goods, etc. So obviously, if we thought that we did find somebody, then the human remains of someone who's been murdered, then we would tell the police. That's it. Lots of pigs. And okay. Oh. She looks really angry. Okay, so do I have to go back to the statue? Have you worked on a UK Viking site? No. I think that's actually probably one of the few eras of archaeological history in the UK that I've not done fieldwork on. I've done like prehistoric, I've done Roman, I've done Saxon, like industrial, pre-modern stuff, Victorian kind of era, etc. But no, I'm also, well, I suppose Scotland also did have Nordic people up here, but not working in York, which is like the main, or how I think of it is like the main Nordic center in the north of England. A tooth and part of a mandible. Yeah, I mean, kind of hard to tell anything from that without more. Yeah, exactly. Robot, get out of my way. Also, sorry, diachronic archaeologist, just about your point about the client rented equipment that's sitting doing nothing. I get that, and like I've heard that as like a thing before, but also having worked on construction sites, the amount of times that they stop and work and rented equipment sits around doing nothing happens a lot. It's not something that just happens with archaeology. The construction industry can be incredibly time wasty. Oh, look, I found it. Buried in the grass. Get your trowel out. No crystals. Ooh. New site indicated. Cyclones. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Time to go. This game kind of reminds me of Myst, which was like a Mist and Ribbon and all that stuff. It was a game my dad played. I didn't play it very much when I was a kid. But this really does remind me of it a lot. Continue. I don't know. This game is quite slow. But what was he trying to tell her? Let's go. Ship's fine. True, I still felt their eyes boring every night went to tell me still hadn't been cleared. Put me right off monitoring projects. Yeah. It's always somebody's fault, right? I don't know. People blame the archaeologist, but I think actually I read something somewhere about how like somebody actually did the math on everything, and like the amount of delays caused by archaeological projects was actually incredibly small. At least in the UK, not US might be a bit different. Fair enough. Are there other ships? I don't know. Okay. Oh, okay. So I can take whichever route I want. Okay.
No one knows how far the rivers go.
Oh, okay.
No one's ever mapped them.
Well, that's a bit
even
silly.
The robots. Or if they did, they aren't telling.
Dun, dun, dun. Ooh, okay. Wouldn't know that I used to play a lot of Mario Kart, did you? During the pandemic, that was our friends. We all had Nintendo like Switch online, and we would do video calls and play Mario Kart against each other. So much swearing. I think I like this part of the game the most. This and the trying to translate ancient languages. AI, I think, is currently in the midst of being able to potentially provide us with a lot of insight into ancient languages, which would be really cool. I know that I was, for a while on Archaeology News, there was someone that was talking about like a database to translate, I think it was cuneiform project. Ooh, backspace, reset. Which turn did I miss? How did I miss this? Okay. At least this game is nice and forgiving. Like, it is quite slow paced. I was saying that on one of my other streams that I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm so bad at that game. I have to reset so much. my poor Steam Deck that I played on, that thing, like, it actually just like died a little bit today because after I had to reset after yet another fight that I screwed up because I don't know what I'm doing. I played Baldur's Gate 2 way back when that came out. I never finished it. Okay. And have great memories. There's a rock up ahead. Oh my goodness, what have I found? I'm glad that on my homepage I subscribed, so I'm sure I'll see you again. See you later, Diachronic. Have a good day at work, and I'm going to be on Sunday. So we're playing Tomb Raider, which is a bit faster paced than this. So I hope you have a good rest of your day at work. Why would anyone come to a lonely spot like this? I don't know. I'm sure you're going to tell me. Well, cannot lay on the ship. What made you want to become an archaeologist? Oh, that's a question that's going to take me probably a few minutes to answer. So I was never good at, like, so I always loved history stuff when I was a kid. That started very early for me. I watched Indiana Jones when I was a kid. My dad played Tomb Raider on PlayStation. When I didn't play it, it was too scary for me when I was a kid. And I always just kind of had a fascination with history. It was one of my best subjects. We did like credit to my Canadian like public, or I guess it's kind of public. I went to a Catholic school for my like I guess over here we call it primary school, but from like ages 5 to like 12. Um and we had like really great history courses, learning all about the history of Canada. And Um, also, my grandmother traveled a lot, and my mom loved like ancient Egyptian decor. And like we had this table in our living room, which my parents still have, which is like it's not octagonal. I think it's more has more sides than that, but it's like a many-sided table, and in the middle is like a copper inset with depictions of like Egyptian, I guess, art of like a pharaoh and a chariot and stuff like that. And I always loved that table growing up. And yeah, so history and English were always my best subjects. I sucked at math. Oh, yeah. It's just not something I'm good at. I have like some kind of mental block when it comes to mathematics. And I did lots of history courses when I was in high school. Like I took history extracurriculars. And I had like my parents bought me lots of books. I had books on the pyramids. I had a book on the ancient worlds. I did a video. I took some videos of me looking through my old books when I was at home for Christmas last year, and I really need to do something with it. Um, and of all these books that my parent like kind of kids coffee table book stuff. I played a game which I have played on the channel before called Pharaoh, which is like a city building game set in ancient Egypt. I played that a lot when I was a kid. And then so it was just kind of like something I was naturally always gravitated towards. And then when I was deciding what I wanted to do after high school, I was looking through programs, and I saw that their archaeology was an option at a few different universities. So I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. That sounds like something that I would really like to learn more about. So I went to the open day at Wilfrid Laurier University, and one of the students that was on the stand was telling me all about how they get to do field work in Jordan, and they learn to do biblical Hebrew and ancient languages and all. And initially I wanted to ancient Egypt was like the thing that I really wanted to Egyptology was what I wanted to get into. And being able to dig in Jordan, like the idea of going to like the Middle East, being able to dig 100% sold me on the on the program. Um, so I knew that that was where I really wanted to go and study. Ooh. And then I got into the program and I went to university, and just like from my first day at my first class, I was just like, this is for me. I have found my people. Um, I loved university. I would say I had a mixed experience in high school. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. But I like university. If there was like a time in my life that I could go and relive it, that would be it. And yeah, so it's just I went to university. I figured out this is it. This is really what I'm interested in. This is what I seem to be somewhat good at. Like I wasn't top of my class, but I consistently got pretty good grades. I got good enough grades to go on and get a master's. And then the first uh, field work that I did in Jordan, my first season that I did it, I was just like, I loved it so much. I went back twice more, and I just loved the digging aspect. I liked the feeling of accomplishment that you get when you start digging something and then you see the progress that you're making. I think that's something that yeah, it can be really difficult in so many computer heavy jobs is seeing progress. Like it like in archaeology, like you see how you're getting deeper into the ground every day and you're always, not every day is exciting. Not every day brings you something new, but every day brings progress. And I think that I always really liked that about it. So the only time that I kind of started not liking fieldwork so much is when I started doing it in Canada and the UK, and the weather is not as nice as it is in Jordan. I don't like working in the rain. It's a bother. I don't like working when I'm cold. It's also a bother. So anyway, that was a really long-winded answer. So let's resume the game. Two. What's a hopper? Safe. It sounds like a teleporter. Not really. Nothing. You can't do anything.
A moment later, the robot was gone, and I was alone in the dark.
I'll be on long enough to sleep. Stress. He's back. Oh, he brought something with him. What do you want to do? Another archaeological lecture cruise. A tool chest. Ooh, cute. What's in the box? What's in the box? I wonder if that's an Indiana Jones reference. How do you know? You can't. Oh, we get to do more translating work. Long one. Let me think. Goddess. Okay. I don't know how I'm supposed to like figure out what this language is. Pilgrims quickly follow. Quickly pray. Let's see if that's. I could still change my mind, but pilgrims quickly pray. Why did he hide it? I don't know. Sorry about well, yeah, gold is pretty good at staying preserved if you don't melt it down. Oh, the kitten's having a stretch. there are several languages where, yeah, you don't have spaces and you have to figure out where a word ends and begins. I don't like it. Praise? No. What do I have to do here? Okay, God, that fits there. What? Holy. Follow holy light. Broken glass jar. I don't know, it's a robe and a jar. Okay. Sorry about another cruise. Tentatively, yes. I really enjoyed so for anybody that's not been here before, I was a guest lecturer on archaeological topics on a cruise this past April. We were originally supposed to be going from Dubai to Cyprus, but because of things happening in the Red Sea, we got rerouted and we ended up going from Cape Town to Southampton. So very, very different route. Um, and being a guest lecturer is a pretty good deal because you essentially get to go on the cruise, not exactly for free. If you're going by yourself, you're free, but you can bring a companion for like a sub. You just have to pay their airfare. You get a stipend while you're on the ship, and you can also volunteer to be part of like tours where you kind of like do head counts and give everybody um, hand sanitizer. It's not hard, and you get to go along on tours for yeah for nothing. So for a holiday, it's a pretty sweet deal. In reality, I didn't have a great time or as great a time as I would have liked because it was the cruise we were on was 18 days long, which is just too long for me for and my husband for a cruise. It was like, and we had at one point we were at sea for 7 days, which gets a bit boring. I also got seasick while we were on the cruise, and because I was pregnant at the time, I couldn't take seasickness medication to make me feel any better. So I felt pretty miserable for probably about a week of the cruise. Yeah, wasn't my favorite. I've never been seasick before in my life, and I've been on boats in rough weather, so I think it was the pregnancy that was causing that. Um, so I think my husband and I have agreed that if we were to do it again, we I would want to do my original itinerary that I was supposed to because I really wanted to go to like the Middle East is my area of interest. Cape Town was cool, but I didn't really. Another thing is that my luggage got lost, so I got to spend all my time in Cape Town shopping for clothes and toiletries. Um, but we only had like three other stops, and they were like okay, and they were interesting, but they weren't something that like I'd like Tenerife has never been at the top of my places that I really really want to visit. I was really looking forward to going back to Petra, which was part of our original itinerary, which didn't happen. So yeah, if we were doing it again, I would try and make sure. Well, I would only do it again if it was somewhere that I was like really interested in going to on vacation, and for a shorter time period with more port stops, so we had more chances to get off the ship and do things. And I wouldn't only do those kinds of holidays because still want to be able to do my own thing, and it is kind of restrictive sometimes when you have to be back on the boat at a certain time. But I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say never, never again, or that I wouldn't do it again. It's just not on the top of my list of things that I want to do for a holiday next. Although with a baby, I'm sure my options, well, you'd think they'd be limited, but I'll still stick a baby in a walker and take them wherever I want to go until they're old enough. Force my child to like the things that I like. I'm in England. Yeah, the weather isn't great, but there is so much history. I mean, there's so much history everywhere. It's just different history in different places, and different history appeals to different people. So yeah. All right. Let's play a little bit more. I'll wait for more questions to come in. Where's the robe from? Oh, he knows. Shifty robot. Show me. Whew. I have the cyclones. Well, you don't seem to be able to die in this game, so let's go for it. Travels to the wall. Let's do this. I have been a quarry. Whoa. Whee! Oh, this is fun. Yeah. Yeah, we're in one piece. Way to you to doubt my ship steering skills. Ooh. Whee! Another rapid. Yeah. Although, you know, dangerous weather conditions are not something that archaeologists are not used to. I have worked outdoors in thunderstorms, right before thunderstorms, snowstorms, vicinity of the cyclones. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we're exploring. Fun. Ooh, what's this up ahead? That looks interesting. Aha, I found it. What is your favorite time period? New Kingdom, Ancient Egypt. I don't even have to think about that too hard. Hatshepsut is my favorite ancient Egyptian pharaoh. She is the OG. And
the hopper fired, and for a
yeah, the
moment I was
Egyptian
gone.
Empire, the peak of
Not aboard the
the New
Nightingale,
Kingdom.
not on the moon
Oh,
beneath.
if I could time travel to any time,
It could have
that's
been a
where I would go.
heartbeat or an hour.
Oh, right. I meant to see who was doing all the voice work in this game. 1 second. I have to figure out because I recognize that voice. Science fiction adventure game. Oh, apparently the ancient script in this game, which is fictional, was inspired by ancient Egyptian and Chinese writing systems. Yeah, but I want to know who the voice actress is. Where would I find that? Gem Carmella. Or Sally. Oh, demo only. Don't recognize the name. That's fine. Let's see. Okay. We've been on here for like an hour and a half now. So let's see. Okay, I don't have any comments on Instagram, but that's fine. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm not really enjoying this game. You might have been able to tell. It's just a bit too slow for me. So I think I'm just going to spend the last little bit of this. I'm gonna go till 9 o'clock, so it's 2 hours, and then I'm gonna go downstairs and stuff my pregnant face with something to eat because I'm getting hungry. So please, if you're there's 6 people online now, so please take the chance to answer your questions. I'm not going to be distracted. I'll leave this up just so I have a nice background, but yeah, I think I'm going to just leave that for now. Also, I'm just going to go onto Twitter and see if A, if anybody's asked me any questions, or B, if we search hashtag ask an archaeologist, if nobody has anything in the chat, then I'll see if I can find some stuff with the hashtag, and then we can answer some questions. Oh, it's ask. Oh, I screwed up my post. That is annoying because I needed to have a space in it. You can edit tweets now, can't you? Let me see. Maybe I can only do it on my phone. Delete post. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, well. Well, that was my screw up that I didn't post in there. Well, I mean, how many people are really on Twitter? What is the heck is this little figurine? Personally proud of this shot. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my Twitter feed into the live stream and we'll look through some of the questions and see what I can ask. Joaquim, for me, my favorite time period is the late Pleistocene as I work in prehistory. Very cool. See if I can add this in without without any problems. I very much doubt that I'm going to be able to pull this off right away. Oh, it's asking me to sign into it. Okay. Yes, I'm going to take that out and window capture. Here we go. Whoa, okay. Make this a little bit smaller and fit it onto here. Okay, okay. So, not the best, but that's fine. For me, as a Swede, it is a Viking period. So, Joachim, why do you like? I'm very interested. I so here's the thing, is I have always heard that you really shouldn't be calling it the quote. Well, maybe I'm wrong, and anybody who's a Nordic archaeologist can tell me this, but Viking is apparently is quite a misnomer because Viking was an occupation of people who went out and seafared and raided places and all that kind of stuff. Not exactly the kind of stuff that you want to promote, but yeah. So calling it Viking, I've always heard is yeah, is not really correct because what we should really be saying is Nordic or Norse archaeology, because that's a bit more of a comprehensive thing. Because there were people who lived in what is now the Nordic countries who weren't Vikings because they were smiths or jarls or whatever. But I suppose at the same time, yeah, Viking is a word that everybody recognizes, become one of those things in our daily language that people are they know what that is. So obviously maybe people haven't decided to stop using it because of that. But yeah, okay. So Lawrence Shaw asks, who should I be following on X to see the best archaeology and heritage content? Probably not me because I don't post a lot on Twitter. But you should definitely be following me on Instagram and YouTube. I do lots of stuff with humor, with memes and stuff like that, especially on Instagram. Facebook Reels and short form content are how I've actually managed to grow my Instagram. I think it was around 1,000 people last year, and now I have 4,100, largely because I went viral in September, October last year with a reel. But yeah, how significant is the impact of digital technology on research, recording, and interpretation? Can we still do archaeology without technology? This is actually a really good question. Norse period. Yeah. Digital technology is really essential, and it's allowed us to kind of, I think, do some stuff by leaps and bounds. But and it's really simplified and made things, I think, more efficient in some ways. I know people nowadays, there's a lot of companies in the UK using iPads for recording, using a portable GPS as well, for sites to create spatial point clouds and maps to help map a site out, is quite popular. We all are still able to do archaeology without that technology, because if your iPad broke, you would just bring out your pencil, your pen, your clipboard, and your context sheet. If your remote GPS broke, you would just get out your tape measure and your theodolite and your scale, and you would still use the old methods. Digital technology has really become prevalent in the past decade or so, but we haven't forgotten how we used to do it, and there are still probably quite a lot of archaeological projects that go without it because they don't have the funding for the fancy technology. So it's also a bit different between like the academic world, and depending on how much funding your project has, and the commercial archaeological world, where you're on a time scale and a budget, and you're actively bringing in money through your work. So you can probably sometimes afford that technology, or make an argument to your client for why you should be able to rent it. Um, Inefficient. No, you say inefficient. There are some people that still prefer doing things the old way. Like my first company that I worked for are known for their historic building drawings, which are very laborious and they're very time intensive and are something that are easily replaced using photogrammetry and 3D scanning and point clouds. And while they maybe do that sometimes, they still are like hired and um, used for their drawing skills, because that's just what they're known for. And you know what? I mean, and sometimes, I mean, yes, this is the society that we live in, but not everything has to be super efficient all the time, which I am saying with my engineer husband currently out of the house. So, who is someone who prioritizes making everything as efficient as possible, which maybe makes me a bit of a hypocrite. I don't know how he'll feel about it, me saying that. Aerial photos are fantastic. Yeah, aerial photos are fantastic, but also aerial photos are not like new technology for archaeology. They're more prevalent than they used to be because you can use drones now, so you don't have to pay someone to go up in a plane and take pictures. But aerial photographs have been around for a very, very, very long time for archaeology, and not everyone can afford a drone. I worked for a company once where they had a guy who like had this gigantic telescopic pole that he would just you put a camera on top of it with like a little remote down at the bottom so you could take pictures, and he wouldn't even be able to see what he was taking pictures of. He would just like put it up and then take a photo, and then you'd see after if they worked or not. And I think probably the biggest annoyance, the thing that would be the hardest to adapt to if we took away a technology, would be photographs and digital cameras, and not being able to look at a photo immediately after you've taken it to see if you've captured what you wanted to. You know, we still did archaeology and took photographs and did everything with film cameras when photos still had to get developed. I've gone through archives to try and archive things with those, and the danger with the well, I said the danger. The thing about those is that yeah, you take a photo and you don't know if it's blurry, is what you're looking at in focus, etc. So sometimes people would end up taking lots more pictures and quote unquote wasting film, to try and make sure that they got the shot that they needed for their record. Or yeah, and you just end up with a lot of garbage shots and it's really wasteful. I think so. Yeah, I think the piece of technology we would struggle with the most without would be digital cameras. Not that somebody asked that, but whatever. What's the best archaeology themed photo that you have taken? I'll go first. This is a great photo of Stonehenge. I also will say that uh, I am planning on doing a video all about the tunnel that they want to build at Stonehenge, which makes people really, really upset from an archaeological perspective, in terms of like, what is the danger? Why is there a concern? And, what are the different sides of the argument for and against the tunnel archaeologically, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, interesting callback there. I do think that learning skills such as drawing and physically recording is they're quite helpful in understanding the whole process. Yeah, like people, I mean, whether or not you're recording something on an iPad or you're writing it down on a piece of paper, that is a skill you'll still learn. And drawing is a bit different. I don't know how much people are now drawing on iPads. Actually, you know what they're doing? They're taking photos on iPads instead of the drawing. But um, it's it'll be interesting to see in like 10, 20 years which archaeological skills people are still using, and which have been replaced by ones that we use technology for. Um, Satellite photos are better if you can get them. Yeah. What's the biggest faux pas you've done during a dig? Oh, what's the biggest faux pas? What's the biggest? That's really hard. Which is not to say that I haven't made faux pas or made mistakes. It's just which one do I pick? Not to say that I've made very, very many. My most humiliating moment was probably when my first day working in archaeology in Canada, I dropped a sieve on my face and broke my nose. Um, that, yeah, was really embarrassing. That was a health and safety thing. That wasn't just me being stupid. That was like, it was the conditions were wet and my glove slipped and it was just like a genuine accident. I was wearing a hard hat, didn't protect me, go figure. But that was, oh, I had black eyes for Christmas that year because of that. I had little raccoon eyes. They were great. Um, Other biggest faux pas. Oh, yeah. Also, I think one time, I think I got a bit big for my britches, and I was talking to someone on a site like I was more of an authority than they were on, like I was like, for lack of a better term, mansplaining something to them. And they were like our site, like our like appointed curator from like the directorate or whatever, and I was just, yeah, that those are probably the most embarrassing moments. And to be fair, like every student has those. Like so many students arrive on archaeological sites feeling really cocky about what they are and what they know because they've, studied archaeology and they know this and blah blah blah, and they just show up on site and you don't know anything. So I've definitely stumbled into doing that before. People are shifting towards using 3D recording for stone tools, but learning to draw them helps in understanding flaking patterns and methods. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'll be really, like I said, it'll be interesting to see in the future what it's like when, like, are those skills going to just die out or whatnot? Like, there's the whole thing as well about like a lot of the time about like um, people who do finds and artifacts and who are incredibly specialized in a particular type of artifact. But there's only so many artifact specialist jobs that go around for contracting, and there's only so much work. So then those people end up doing this work their whole life, and then they're ready to retire, but they have no one to pass on their skills and knowledge to, because then that basically is removing revenue from them, and maybe they don't want to retire, and then you just like lose those skills. But that's not just like an archaeology problem. That's a wider issue as well. What merchandise do you have? I'm not sure. You mean in my Redbubble store? In my Redbubble store, I have 4 different designs that I have come up with and made in GIMP, that are archaeologically inspired. One is a trowel that says "I dig archaeology." Another one is like a beaker potsherd, like archaeological drawing of a beaker that says Beaker Bay. And then I have capitalist with the capital from the 3 Greek styles of capital columns, and then I have get to the point, which has 3 different types of drawings of prehistoric arrowheads on it. And you can get them because of the way Redbubble works. I just have to like turn on all the different things that you can get them as. So think of t-shirts, hats, mugs, pins, sweaters, maybe a pillow. I can't remember all the different, but the way Redbubble works is you basically upload a design and then you can select what you want your design on, and you can like adjust it to make sure that it like looks fine. Tote bags, those kinds of things. I've got lots of that stuff. I actually just made a Redbubble sale the other day. It was my first one in ages, which was good. I graduated with master's without a field school due to COVID. When I went to my first dig, I was embarrassed as everyone knew what to do, but I had no idea. I mean, yeah, like totally get what you're saying, but also I've had those moments and I've done lots of field work. Like when I showed up on my first Canadian dig working, it's a completely different style to what I was doing in Jordan. Completely different artifacts, assemblages, history, um, style of work. You know, I knew the basics of like in Jordan, we used like hoes and uh, big matic like picks, like a pick, like a mining pick or whatever you would call it. And in Canada, you just basically use shovels and you barely ever touched your trowel. And you're doing lots of sieving for flakes, which you have to kind of like learn how to like find in the sieve. So I didn't, well, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. And then I did that and, you know, I was good enough at it to keep doing it. And then I got to the UK, and that was also completely different style. They were calling everything features, and I was like, "What is this thing that they're talking? Why are you talking about features?" And they record. They use different terminology. They do a lot more of like single context recording. So like they basically in Jordan we were doing you have a 5 meter square on a grid. That's your square that you work on for 6 weeks, and you go down and you record everything in that square. And that is like the hole that you live in for the duration of your field school. In Canada, you were digging in 1 by 1 meter quote unquote units, but you were only maybe digging half a meter down, maybe before you reached subsoil. You dug a little bit into that, and then you moved on to the next one. In the UK, you don't have any units. You go onto a site, you strip off all the topsoil, you find all the darker patches of dirt in the subsoil, and then you like half section, quarter section, excavate them. It's a completely different system. So like, yeah, and you have to go until you reach quote unquote this thing called natural. Oh, I hate I had such a hard time when I first started figuring out what people just talk about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, you just keep going until you find natural." And I would be like, "What is natural?" And nobody could ever give me a very good explanation of how you recognize it. They were like, "You just know. The soil just changes." It just drove me crazy. So yeah, you're not the only one here. You're not the only one who showed up on an archaeological site and just been like, "Huh?" Um, let's see if we have any other good questions. Uh, Day in Archaeology. Oh yeah, that's the CBA, Council for British Archaeology. History guy, marching off to right. Ah, well, this is a good photo of someone going off to try and find a solar barge or bark. Where are you digging this summer and why? Oh, that makes me sad because I'm not digging anywhere. My garden, I haven't dug in years. I miss it. Like, and it's not for a lack of trying. In terms of it's difficult. People who've been here before know this. I don't work in the field anymore. I haven't for quite a number of years now. Um, it's hard to get back into doing field work because I'd either have to go to do like a volunteer project, which you sometimes have to pay to do, and or I'd have to take paid holiday to go and do. Um, which I'd like to use my holidays for holidays because I have a 9 to 5 job that I would like sometimes to have time off of. Um, I almost went on a rescue excavation in Oman with my friend a few years ago, but the funding was dodged, so we didn't end up going. I was so close to being able to spend 2 weeks and then like being able to probably take some videos and record and do all of that stuff. A few summers ago, I don't think it was last summer, maybe it was the summer before, I tried reaching out to a couple different like excavations in Europe to see if anybody would be happy for me to even go there for a week just so I could like do some filming of like what a day is like on their dig and help out. You know, I'm an experienced archaeologist. They wouldn't have to babysit me as much as they would like a new student, but nobody was interested. A lot of them said that you would have had to do like the full 6 week field school, which I just don't have time for. So That's hard. By natural, do you mean a sterile layer? As we have a lot of multicultural sites here in India, so generally the tradition is to go until you hit bedrock. Yeah, like natural is, yeah, it's like a sterile layer that you can definitely see that features archaeological like things are cut into. So post holes, for example, you can see that there's like a ring of post holes. That's a thing. And yeah, you don't find anything in it. Generally in the UK, you don't excavate to bedrock. You excavate until you stop finding features in the natural, basically. Um, yeah. Mm, all right. Keep your questions coming. I'm so annoyed that my tweet is not editable and that I didn't do the right. I can't believe it. I didn't have a space in there. Anyway, I won't dwell on it. More Stonehenge photos. Green glaze. What's the best site interpretation you've seen or been involved in producing? Dance. Oh, I don't know, because there's so many of the projects that I've been on that have not finished being published yet. I don't think I can really even answer that one. I worked on the Ring Road in Lincoln, which I think once that project is fully finished and done, which maybe it is, I haven't heard an update about it in a while. That will be pretty cool. It had a lot going on, and yeah, maybe in a few years I'll take my kid down to Lincoln Museum and go and see the exhibit that they have on it, because they actually had while we were doing the project, they had an exhibit on everything that we'd found so far, like just a little glass case at the Lincoln Museum, which was pretty cool. Got a question about getting your research published? No. How to secure a trench. All right, okay. We're at 9 o'clock, so we're pretty much there, and I can't find a lot of questions on here. It's just a lot of people saying, ask me a question. So, if anybody has any further questions, please put them in the chat in the next like minute or so. If not, we're gonna just kind of end things for today. But don't forget to please like and subscribe as it comes up on the screen. And come back on Sunday because we're going to be live streaming Tomb Raider. We're almost finished the first game. And also, that's going to lead into the premiere of my video about archaeology and climate change and the connections between how the climate is currently changing, what impact it has on archaeological sites, and also what archaeologists, as people who look into our past and how we used to live, what we can bring and solutions that we can bring to living in a world that's perhaps less reliant on fossil fuels and modern things that are very bad for the environment. I have a feeling that animal bones are normal in archaeology. Yeah, it's quite common to find animal bones on site. I did actually do a short zoo archaeology course at Sheffield University a few years back for like a few days where you learned the basics of identifying between different animal like species, so like cow, sheep, etc. Don't think I could tell you. I don't know if I could confidently do that now. But yeah, I found lots and lots of animal bones. Actually, on my first UK site that I ever worked on, which at the time was about like a 5 minute, less than 5 minute walk from my house, which was really great. That I lived at the time. I don't live there anymore. I found an intact dog skeleton Don't know if it was recent or not. It was completely skeletonized, but I was so excited because I also found evidence on the dog skeleton that he had a degenerative like spinal condition that's called dish, which is basically where your spine starts to fuse together, and it's like really identifiable by the fact that it basically starts to, you start to have all these vertebra fused together, and it kind of looks like almost like candle wax has just like dripped down all of the bones, but it's all bone, and it can be really painful, and it's something that we do see in humans and animals, but it can be really hard to diagnose because you have to have like a certain amount of vertebra need to be fused in order to be like, oh yeah, this is definitely dish, which I'm actually just going to look up what it means. Um, skeletal. Diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, dish. Ligaments calcified and hard. Yeah. So that was actually really cool when I found that dog, and I was like, oh my gosh, this dog has dish. You can never like identify that, like this never happens. I mean, I felt bad for the dog because that would have been really painful, but yeah, that was pretty exciting for me as somebody who studied osteology. Being able to like identify something like that was pretty cool. Mm. Oh, this is a Scottish Crannog Centre, um, which is when talking about reconstructions, um, is a like a living history museum up in the north of Scotland. I've been there twice. One time I went there and I volunteered for like a morning while my husband ran a triathlon. But this Crannog is like an Iron Age structure building house that is basically like an artificial island that's got that like they're, you see them in like lochs and lakes in the British Isles. Um, so they reconstructed and built this one on Loch Tay in Scotland many years ago, but it actually burned down a few years ago. I don't think they ever figured out what caused the fire, but they have, instead of being, I don't know, defeated by the whole thing, they actually, with a bunch of funding, bought a new site and have completely rebuilt like a new Iron Age village across the water. So they have on land buildings, and I think they're also, I don't know if they have finished yet, but they're going to be building like a few more Cranogs on there. And it's like, yeah, one of those places you visit with your kids, and people are dressed up like they're from the Iron Age, and they have a bunch of different like craft stations where you can learn about how people used to live. So at the old center they had like they had a woodworking bit, they had a textile bit, they had like a kitchen bit, they had a bit where took you down to a dugout canoe and talked about games and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was really cool. And yeah, I'm really glad that they were able to officially reopen the center. Um, and yeah, that's one of their archaeologists in their period appropriate clothing. So, right, okay. Chat has died down a bit. So yeah, I think this went well. Okay, we've got one. Funny excavation injuries. I pierced my middle finger with a pick as my hand slipped while excavating an elephant rib fragment and forgot my other hand was under it for support. Probably breaking my nose on my first day of work would be my at my top of that list. Um, I haven't. I've actually been pretty good about not hurting myself. I never got stung by scorpions or snakes when I was working in Jordan, thank God. 'Cause I would have, yeah, freaked out if that had happened. I've not broken myself on site. I know so many people who've just hurt themselves just by tripping in like a hole. It's ridiculous. Um, yeah. Uh, Yeah, okay. I'm gonna call it there. I want to go eat something and watch some TV and chill down for like wind down for the weekend. So Thank you, everybody, so much for coming on to the Ask an Archaeologist stream for 2024. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, share, etc. Tell the algorithm to promote what I'm doing so that I can combat and, against all the people who promote non-archaeological stuff but try to make themselves seem like experts. And also just so we can have more archaeological voices out there that aren't in their ivory towers and academic publications. Really what I'm about here is public archaeology, making this accessible for you guys and making you feel like you can talk to me and I'm going to listen to you, and like I'm not mysterious, that I don't have a super secret agenda to hide things from you. Thank you so much for coming along, and I hope to see you on Sunday. If you enjoyed this stream, Tomb Raider will be a bit faster pace, and I will die a lot because I die all the time when I play that game. Have a good rest of your day. Have an excellent, restful weekend, and I will see you guys on my next stream and video. Thank you so much for watching, and stay curious. I'll see you next time. Bye.